Welcome to Think Different Nation, a Steve Jobs playbook, the podcast that reveals how we perceive, collect, and connect the dots of creation. Your host is Ty Glover, ideation coach and consultant. Inspired by Steve Jobs' belief that to create truly innovative ideas, or rather to connect his proverbial dots, you have to trust in something. Your gut, destiny, life, karma, or whatever. He'll explore how these forces shape the most groundbreaking ideas. Ready to challenge your thought patterns? Let's dive in.
Hey, I want to thank you for coming into this particular episode of Think Different Nation, a Steve Jobs playbook. And I'm going to be talking about the four minds that we all have available to us, if we only know how to perceive them. Most people believe that thinking happens within the brain, but that's just one part of a four-part system that's actually in play. I mean, you don't just think your way into an idea. You sense, you feel, you connect, and sometimes you even receive them. Whether you're solving a problem or making a choice or coming up with a creative idea, your mind is never working alone. You see, it's part of a team that works together, a team of four built-in systems that process information in different ways. And these systems are natural. They're not mystical at all. They're how the human mind actually works when it's allowed to operate fully. So let's break it down into four different processes. For example, body awareness. Before you have a thought, your body has already noticed something. You see, different parts of your body, your five basic senses and more, depending upon your creative focus, are constantly picking up on signals through those senses. And it's scanning for shifts in sounds and tones and temperature, energy, or even rhythm. And for someone with a strong auditory intelligence, for example, like a musician, this might be the tapping of the tone or the pattern that keeps repeating within their awareness. And it won't let go and eventually becomes maybe the seed for a new piece of music. Or if the high-precision race car team driver and the mechanic, it might be a faint vibration that they feel just slightly off from the norm. And their body senses it before even their mind can explain it, triggering a closer inspection that could prevent a failure. You see, your body also responds in subtle environmental shifts. It can detect mood changes within a room. And it can tighten up and pull back as it tries to make sense of something that's unfamiliar to it, trying to tell you the difference between the norm and what's out of the norm. And this is your first response system, and it doesn't speak in words. It just senses. For example, have you ever caught yourself fixated on the way the light bends across the surface, or how two shapes align and slightly out of the sync? And it felt like there's something important there, a detail that you couldn't just explain, but you can't take your attention away from either. That's that layer at work. Now the second layer I want to talk to you about is the feeling mind. Because this part, it doesn't just feel emotions, it builds meaning from them. And it quietly sorts through your experiences into categories, good, bad, safe, unsafe, valuable, or even unimportant, long before you've consciously even noticed what's happening. And it doesn't ask for your permission. It responds automatically, based on the emotional patterns that you've built up over time. And those patterns, they don't just shape how you feel. They become the mental models that you use to explain the world around you. You see, your feeling mind, it stores emotional rules for your reality, what to avoid and what to trust and what to expect. And these roles, they get applied in real time without even thinking. And they oftentimes decide how you will respond even before you notice it. And your memories live here as well. But not just your stories, but the feelings that are tied to images, sounds, and sensations. And sometimes a shift in light or a sudden vibration or even a familiar texture can bring you back in a wave of feeling, even if those moments itself seems perfectly neutral. This is because your feeling mind isn't just reading the situation, it's reacting to specific qualities of how it was experienced. For example, the brightness, the tone, the distance, and the pressure. I mean, this is what NLP would call your submodalities. Have you ever found yourself, for example, suddenly drawn to a texture or sound or a shift in lighting and it couldn't stop you from thinking about it? Well, that's that feeling mind that's reacting to something that's touched you in a deeper emotional and sensory pattern. And for a creator, this might show up as a subtle detail in an environment like the rustling of the leaves or the hum of an engine or where the sunlight falls across the surface. And it doesn't just catch your attention, it creates a feeling of something that's important there, something that's worth exploring further. Now the next mind I want to talk about is the creative insight layer. This is the third one. And this is the part that connects Steve Jobs' proverbial dots, because it recognizes the patterns that others overlook, or more importantly, it recombines them for you. It draws from the fragments of your past experience and the things that you've seen, heard, felt, sensed in other ways, and without realizing it, they were stored. And when this layer activates, it doesn't feel like an effort, it feels like realization. And sometimes it happens when you step back and you zoom out, and suddenly you're sensing a bigger picture that wasn't visible before. But other times, it comes from leaning into it and from focusing in on something small, seemingly obvious, and then asking obvious questions. And both can shift your view in a way that lets the idea surface. And it's not logic, it's not emotion. It's a deeper system of internal connections where ideas are assembled, not invented. And sometimes it seems like you're inventing the future, but in fact, you're using your past experiences to simulate what's possible and what's next. And that's what insight is. It's a new combination of old material. So let's go into the fourth one next. This is called the shared field. And this is the most subtle layer of perception, but it's also the most expansive. Because it's not just a feeling of flow or perfect timing, but it's a field of everything. It's the space where all possibilities exist, and insights and knowledge, they already exist there. In some traditions, for example, they call it the unconscious collective. Anthony Peake, for example, in his book of that name, would refer to it as being the daemon, as the part of your conscious that has already lived all possible lives and versions of your life. And it feeds you information because it knows exactly where you're trying to go. And its job is to support you on that journey. And therefore, it feeds you information exactly when you need it. Or Ingo Swann, for example, the world-famous psychic, described this as the psychic matrix, where it's a layer of reality beyond the senses, where creativity, intuition, and intelligence arise through harmonized connections with this deeper field. You see, the shared field, it's not owned by the mind. It's something that the mind tunes into. And when it does, something remarkable happens. You see, you start receiving information, a thought that you weren't looking for, or a symbol that suddenly stands out. And it's a book that may be sitting on your desk that you've never even noticed before, and you have no idea even how it came from or where it got there. But it contains exactly the information that you'll need tomorrow, even though the need hasn't yet been recognized within your conscious mind. Or it's an idea that fits perfectly, arriving just when you're ready to receive it. And this layer doesn't just create from scratch. It connects something that has always existed but was outside of your awareness. And it doesn't operate through logic or emotion. It operates through connections. And when you're aligned, mentally, emotionally, and your awareness, this field responds. And many of your biggest breakthroughs, they don't come from effort. They come from being at the right state to notice what's already available. But additionally, this is also the quantum layer of creativity. And whether you call it intuition, timing, grace, or the voice of your daemon, it's real. And when you learn to listen to it, it answers. Now, why does this matter? Well, if you only trust in your thinking mind, you're missing out on 75% of the process that leads to insight. And your best ideas, they don't start with words. They start with awareness. They start beneath the surface. And in the next issue, I'm going to begin with the first system. That's the body awareness. And it's how you sense what your mind can't see. So I want to thank you again for coming into this episode of Think Different Nation, the Steve Jobs Playbook. And my name is Ty Glover, and I bring clarity to the obvious. Cheers.
That's all for this episode of Think Different Nation, a Steve Jobs Playbook. Your host, Ty Glover, thanks you for listening to the show and exploring the process of connecting the dots to create groundbreaking ideas. Stay curious, keep trusting in that something, and tune in next time for more insights that help us think differently.